Imagine a world where sound fades away, where the very sense that defines your passion becomes your greatest enemy. This happened in post-Napoleon Austria when the deaf and despairing man crafted an eternal masterpiece, a piece of music that transformed his personal struggle into a universal anthem of hope and joy. This is the story of how Ludwig van Beethoven, facing the total loss of his most essential sense, his hearing, forged his Ninth Symphony, not merely as music, but as a philosophy of triumph over adversity. This video examines how Beethoven transformed silence into music and despair into happiness. Let's begin with the first movement of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, the Allegro. This movement mirrors the onset of Beethoven's deafness and the profound despair it brought. The symphony opens with unresolved, hovering fifths and silence, symbolizing ambiguity and expectancy. Beethoven's musical metaphor for emerging from despair into ordered joy, according to Maynard Solomon. Like music being formed from silence, the Ninth Symphony functions to raise a curtain so that the action may begin, or so that we may witness the unveiling of a distant universe. In 1802, already a famous composer and piano player, Beethoven's worsening deafness drove him to consider suicide, as expressed in a letter he wrote to his brothers known as the Heiligenstadt Testament, where he grappled with the conflicts between his artistic purpose and the fear of losing his hearing. Beethoven wrote, "Yet it was not possible for me to say to men, 'Speak louder, shout, for I am deaf.' Alas, how could I declare the weakness of a sense which in me ought to be more acute than in others, a sense which formerly I possessed in highest perfection? At times I was on the point of putting an end to my life. Art alone restrained my hand. Oh, it seemed as if I could not quit this earth until I had produced all I felt within me, and so I continued this wretched life." At 27, Beethoven noticed his hearing failing, an affliction that worsened sporadically. It took 2 years for him to accept that it might be permanent, turning it into an obsessive fear that he confided to close friends as the loss of his most essential faculty. Ah, how could I possibly quit the world before bringing forth all that I felt it was my vocation to produce? Maria Popova puts it this way: that year he began, though he did not yet know it, the long gestation of what would become not only his greatest creative and spiritual triumph, but an eternal masterwork of the supreme human art, making meaning out of chaos and beauty out of sorrow. Oscar Osicki from the YouTube channel Inside the Score describes the Ninth as not just a piece of music, but a philosophy of triumph over adversity, embodied in music. Highlighting the structure of the Ninth's turmoil in the first movement, glimpses of joy in the second and third, and the resolution in the fourth. The symphony's questions and answers reflect Beethoven's tormented quest, ambiguity yielding to joyful resolution. Moving on to the second movement, the scherzo, we see glimpses of joy amid ongoing struggles, reflecting Beethoven's battles with deafness throughout his life. This movement is livelier, but still shadowed by turmoil. He was described as ugly and half-crazy by a young woman to whom he proposed. But amidst his rejection and despair, his resolve was unshakable. I will take fate by the throat. Surely it shall not bend me down completely. He believed his life was meant for action and for struggle. He resolved to see us through to the end. Oh, life is so beautiful. To live it 1,000 times, I feel that I am no longer made for a quiet life. Beethoven's engagement with Enlightenment ideals, especially the emphasis on liberty and human unity, fueled his decades-long goal to musically interpret Friedrich Schiller's poem Ode to Joy, which he achieved in the Ninth Symphony's triumphant finale. According to John Caius, who wrote that at the premiere of the symphony, the audience, breaking the custom of not cheering until the full symphony is concluded, applauded at the end of the second movement. The singer, Caroline Unger, pulled Beethoven's sleeve to show him the audience while he was still conducting. This certainly echoes the line we will hear later. The magic of joy binds together what custom has strictly divided. The slow lyrical third movement, the Adagio, expresses Beethoven's profound longing for peace and happiness, a theme that echoes his plea in the Heiligenstadt Testament. O Providence, let me have just one pure day of joy. So long it is since true joy filled my heart. He yearned to feel it in the temple of nature and of men once again. Beethoven's unfulfilled romances with Countess Josephine Brunswick and Countess Giulietta Guicciardi deepened this yearning. Because both women were aristocrats and Beethoven was a commoner, marriage was strictly forbidden. These losses intensified his sadness, yet also fueled his pursuit of a higher transcendent joy, one grounded in Enlightenment ideals of human equality and universal brotherhood. His resolve to devote his life to creating music that would bring joy to others became the spiritual DNA of the Ninth Symphony. The Adagio embodies the struggle to reach that resolution. Beethoven expressed this philosophy vividly when he told the young Franz Liszt, after hearing him play when he was 11 years old, "Off with you! You're a happy fellow, for you will give happiness and joy to many other people. There is nothing better or greater than that." Despite his despair and encroaching deafness, Beethoven believed that music existed to bring joy, a belief that ultimately shaped the triumphant choral finale of the Ninth. Finally, in the fourth movement, a narrative unfolds where the music reflects Beethoven's rejection of pain and his transformation of it into joy. The opening of the fourth movement is called the Schreckens Fanfare, the fanfare of terror, according to the Romantic composer Richard Wagner. Beethoven notes in his music sketchbook a narrative being told in the music is a search for something new, a new sound we have never heard before. The orchestra searches by repeating the elusive opening of the first movement. The cello basses bark back with, "No, this won't do. I require something more pleasing." The upbeat scherzo returns. Nor this, it is no better, merely livelier. Then the adagio. No again. It is too tender and sweet. I need something brighter, more cheerful. Then we get something the orchestra has never played before. Almost everyone can recognize this tune. Beethoven exclaims, "Ha! This is it! The joy I seek! I have found it!" How else can the orchestra express its newfound joy? The orchestra has already done everything it could to express joy through its instruments. A lone singer with a deep voice stands upon the stage to usher in another new creation. Richard Wagner eloquently puts it like this: "Where music can go no further, there comes the word." Mimicking the opening of the movement, the Schrecken's fanfare resounds once more, and the baritone sings out, "O friends, not these sounds. Rather, let us strike up more pleasant ones and more joyful ones." He goes on to sing Friedrich Schiller's poem, Ode to Joy, followed by the softer voices of the tenor and the sopranos, together singing Freude, schöne Gitterfunken, joy, beautiful spark of divinity. This is the first symphony in history to have singing in it. Then Beethoven stops us in our tracks. The orchestra breaks into a Turkish march, the same drums and cymbals that marched with Napoleon's armies. But listen, the rhythm is deliberately offbeat, syncopated, stumbling, half drunk. The soldier cannot march straight. He can only skip, stagger, and dance. Beethoven is disarming the soldier. He takes the soldier who marched to kill on the battlefield and forces him to dance like a happy drunkard at a wedding. No more war, only joy. That drunken, joyous march in the bridge to the final chorus. The battlefield becomes a festival, and the ode to joy explodes. The music culminates in the heights of joy, embodying the spirit of Enlightenment ideals, freedom, and unity. The singing of Ode to Joy does not remain purely triumphant. There is a moment when the chorus becomes solemn and reverent, especially on the line, "Above the starry canopy, there must dwell a loving Father." This moment is a powerful reflection of the faith in God that helped drive Beethoven's search for joy. Even in his darkest times, his spiritual conviction gave him strength. Toward the end of his life, fully aware of this hard lot, he wrote to Ignaz Moscheles about following the will of God. "Truly, a hard lot has befallen me. However, I submit to the will of fate and only constantly ask God so to ordain it in His divine will, that I may be protected against want, while I must here suffer a living death. That will give me enough strength to bear my lot, hard and terrible as it may be, with submission to the will of the All-Highest." This profound belief in the benevolent higher order underpins the symphony's ultimate message, that even amidst despair and deafness, Beethoven envisioned music as a conduit for happiness. The premiere on May 7, 1824 in Austria was met with rapturous applause and 5 curtain calls. After the final chord, the silence broke into a scream of applause. People leaped up, waving their handkerchiefs, but Beethoven, fully deaf, noticed none of it. He was still waving his arms to the delayed internal time of music only he can hear. It wasn't until Caroline Unger gently took his arm and turned him around that he was able to witness the ecstasy of the audience, the joy he had worked 22 years to create. John Cares wrote that this must have brought him immense joy. Beethoven's life and the structure of the Ninth Symphony teach a profound lesson. Beethoven never escaped pain, he conquered it. The Ninth Symphony's 4 movements are his life in sound: turmoil, struggle, searching, and finally joy. From the hovering silence of despair to the roaring chorus of faith and hope. Richard Capel put it perfectly. Though he won through, he remains in his fulfillment the tragic musician. The joy of such men is the joy of contest, of domination. Beethoven knew his ninths was ahead of his time, a testament of joy meant for future hearts that influenced later composers such as Wagner, Brahms, Bruckner, and Mahler. It is used to usher in the new year in Germany and Japan, and it is the anthem of the European Union. He had once told a critic of his later works that they are not for you, but for a later age. Beethoven was right. Here we are, 200 years later, and still listening to this masterpiece and learning from it. Through his symphony, Beethoven not only conquered his own despair, but gifted the world a philosophy of triumph. Whether you're a music lover or someone facing your own trials, remember, joy isn't found, it is crafted.